anything to expand their understanding of it. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I appreciate that a elder in the Black community is the one who really initiated and pushed for Juneteenth as a federal holiday. I'm not sure whether it really, I think in some ways it dilutes the true meaning.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
And Black people are going to celebrate anyway. So,
right?
But
I think they should celebrate.
I do
with
too.
the day off. And
but you
time
could
and a
just take
half.
a sick day. That's even better.
I know, right? No, I just think that no, I think no Black person should have to work.
Could you imagine? Well, first of all, I would be like, I don't, for what it costs to be.
Look, I would also say I'm sorry, I just interrupted you. Go.
You caught yourself.
I did.
That's so good. Scott and I talked because I think you included that I also am a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant.
Yes.
So he caught himself in the moment
I'm
of
so sorry.
That's the work, man.
I know,
anyway,
right?
I think it does, making it this universal thing, I don't think really behooves anyone except for people who it doesn't directly impact getting to go to the beach.
Right. But and to your point of that is not necessarily your lineage because your parents are Haitian,
right?
Came via Canada.
That's right.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah. So, but even though it's not your lineage, just for all of the crap you have to put up with, take the day.
Yes.
That's what I mean. It's like if we're gonna. Let's talk about take the day as kind of like a little reparation right there, That'd
be a good holiday, Reparations Day.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't even have to just be like connected to enslavement. It could just be connected to trifling people.
And civil rights, yeah. To trifling people.
Hashtag trifling.
Hashtag trifling. Well, we've said all we're going to say.
That's what we've got.
But actually, there was one person who came through my line yesterday who was wearing a freedom, like a day, the Juneteenth and like Freedom Day. And was like, I was doing this. I'm like, thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, nice white lady. Who did
probably
that?
Married to a black guy. Did I say that up?
You did. They are never going to ask me back to do this show.
I just signed my exit papers.
See you later, Tania. No, but that's my thoughts on Juneteenth, and I'm glad we kind of agree on that whole thing.
Yes, of course, and it's powerful to hear it coming from you. Again, Scott's got in this situation the privilege, and he's speaking up, and that's important.
I'm trying, but hey, we got to take a break. But when we come back, we're going to dive into that memoir finally. Yay. So please stick around. You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez right here on WCPT Heartland Signal.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. An extreme heat warning in effect for the weekend. Tonight, a few isolated showers. Most of the area stays dry. Low temperature of 73 with breezy south winds. Saturday, sunny with a high of 94. The heat index as high as 102. Sunday, sunshine with a high of 95 degrees. Southwest winds up to 35 miles an hour. Monday, sunny with a high temperature of 96 degrees. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 85.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
The Rick Smith Show.
What comes of all of this chaos? Because look, it's fun to watch. It's interesting to watch as they're literally falling on their face. What does it mean to us? How bad does it get for us? We, the working people of this country, who honestly don't have the kind of wealth to weather a storm, the ones who are going to probably lose our homes, to people like Donald Trump, who does have the wealth to weather the storm, or at least the credit.
The Rick Smith Show, weeknights at 7 on WCPT 820.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. During the Civil War, 11% of the Confederate Army was made up of enslaved men forced to join. One of these men was Robert Smalls. Smalls was a deckhand on the Confederate supply ship known as the Planter. During his time, Smalls learned as much as he could about navigating the ship so he and others could escape. And on May 13th of 1862, while officers were sleeping, Smalls, along with 16 others, took the planter out of the Charleston harbor, navigating through all 5 checkpoints while heading to open waters looking for the Union blockade. Smalls raised a white flag of surrender, letting Union soldiers board the ship, giving them guns, ammo, and documents about planned Confederate attacks. Being a wealth of information, Smalls was given the role of the Union Navy captain. Stories like Smalls are one of the many factors convincing President Lincoln to allow free African Americans to serve in the Union Army. This has been a WCPT Veteran Minute.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
No detours, no distractions. Just bold ideas and real talk. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
And welcome back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I am Scott Duff, filling in for said Patti Vasquez, who was taking a detour, hopefully just into a chair where she can just sit.
Yeah.
She's a busy woman.
Rest is resistance.
I know. What?
Well, no.
All right. That's a whole other chapter.
Rest is important, though.
Rest is very important.
Yes.
But don't even get me started on mental health days,
not.
too.
Let's not.
Yeah, if you really want to get get me going on something completely, talk to me about mental health days and Gen Z.
Okay.
That is me showing my get off of my lawn kind of moment right here. But anyway, hey, I'm so glad that you were here because you are here. Not so I can just butcher your name and we can talk things, but you've got a memoir that's coming out.
I do.
It is called Black Girl from a White Suburb, Finding My Light, Using My Voice. I'm going to cry right now because I like to cry. I'm so proud of you. This book is so wonderful.
Thank you.
And dare I say, necessary. I think as we are talking about the reasons for Juneteenth and for Freedom Day and for civil rights and what's going on. What was the impetus? Like when you're like, all right, it's time to write a memoir.
Yeah. This memoir has been in various stages for like the past 10 years.
Okay.
I've stopped, I've started, I've stopped, I've started, but I've always known that it's a story I want to tell. It is my story. And what that experience of growing up in an environment where no one else looked like me, what that did to me, what that taught me, and then my sort of journey towards claiming my identity, partly through my love of performing. And so it's kind of this convergence of my experience about the arc of my identity, as well as my love of performing and how performing informed my journey towards self.
So, and I'm assuming, I read this, so the way that you organized the book, the way it's laid out, is each chapter is basically a different show that you worked on in your very storied career.
That was for me the moment it broke.
When you're like, oh.
Yeah, like a lot of, in the beginning stages, it was a lot of the different stories, but I didn't have a framework. And when I realized that my life has been spent being, reading, seeing, talking about, loving plays, I started to think about the plays that coincided with certain events in my life, so that each chapter does, it's not just a breakdown of plays that I've done, but it's not like
here's my resume.
Yeah. So, but the play that ends up being the title of the chapter also ends up having a sort of important part of my experience on my journey to finding myself. And so, it is a sort of peek into the love of performing and the love of the written word in play form, but then also how I do consider how it sort of helped me develop as a human.
Yeah, well, you also describe it as your superpower.
Yes,
throughout the book.
Performing being my superpower, all the way back to the first show I ever got to do, where I played the caterpillar in Alice in Wonderland.
Yes.
And because I was in this environment where I never felt like I could fully be myself, because I was trying to adapt and sort of try in my own way to not have people notice that I was different from them, because it was an all-white suburb, all-white grade school, high school. But then I found that on stage, that was someplace I didn't have to do that. And I could stand front and center in the light and use all of my
gifts.
Yeah. And so that became my superpower and my drive, and helped me understand, my own potential.
Yeah, and I love that you bring up the caterpillar, which apparently was like a recurring character that you just kept bringing back.
Oh, exactly, yes.
I'm bringing the caterpillar back for an assembly.
Far and wide, exactly.
But I love that you were describing, like, you were green all over. You were Elphaba before Elphaba even knew what she was singing.
My face was painted green. I had a big, like a curve shaped like hood that I wore, and I had extra arms, and it was the moment I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
How lucky.
Yes.
How lucky.
And I was in 7th grade.
Yeah. It was just clear. Would you mind reading a little portion? Because I think you said you might. So the entire memoir is called Black Girl from a White Suburb, Finding My Light, Using My Voice, which I love is also kind of, those are theater terms as well.
Yes.
But there are also many different interpretations of those.
Yeah.
Bang up job on that title.
I was real happy with that. Thanks.
And you, Tania Richard, you have divided each chapter with a production. I think this is one from The Wiz.
The Wiz. So this chapter is called The Wiz, and it covers my sort of high school path, which included this experience. I was at the top of the food chain with the theater kids in Nazareth, which also afforded me status in the general population. Athletes like Ron, the captain of the football team, who had the discipline of an Olympic athlete, told me he couldn't imagine getting on stage the way I did. He was the first person to ask me how I memorized all my lines. For non-theater folks, that is the first question they want answered. The process is mystifying to them. The answer is repetition and connection to what you are doing on stage. That was the one and only time Ron ever spoke to me. I was honored. In my junior year, the musical was The Wiz. This is an excellent time to remind you that I went to an almost all-white high school. According to Wikipedia, The Wiz is a retelling of L. Frank Baum's classic 1900 children's novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, in the context of modern African-American culture. Did I mention I went to an almost all-white school? I believe I did. The Wiz premiered on Broadway starring Stephanie Mills and Andre DeShields in 1975. Don't get me started on the iconic movie starring Diana Ross and Michael Jackson. I just knew I was going to be cast as Dorothy in the school play. I just knew Miss Lewis had chosen The Wiz for me. Clearly, she thought casting me as Miss Hannigan and Annie my sophomore year wasn't enough of a showcase. Miss Lewis needed me front and center, carrying a musical on my sturdy black shoulders. While I imagined the standing ovations I'd receive after the 11 o'clock number home, my friend Melissa was in Miss Lewis's office saying she wouldn't audition for the play. Melissa told me when I ran into her in the hallway later that day. I took her news as proof that I'd be cast as Dorothy. Now that she was bowing out, I figured the role would be handed to me. But a few days later, Miss Lewis called Melissa back into her office and said if she didn't audition, it didn't mean I would get the part. I knew I could handle the singing when performing the role of Dorothy if I were just given a chance, but I didn't get the part. I was mad, hurt, and embarrassed. How could I show my face after not being cast as the lead in an all-black musical in an all-white school? Why did Miss Lewis pick The Wiz if she wasn't planning to cast me? My head exploded when I found out I would not play Dorothy. And when the blood particles and matter fell back down, they reconfigured my brain to accept what was unacceptable. I wouldn't be cast as Dorothy, but I auditioned anyways. I loved theater more than anything, and all I wanted to do was perform. I was cast as Eveline, the Wicked Witch of the West. Let's focus on these optics, okay? We have an all-white production of The Wiz in a high school that has 2 black students, and one of them is playing the Wicked Witch of the West, named Eveline. Evil
That was an excerpt from Black Girl from a White Suburb, Finding My Light, Using My Voice by the great Tania Richard. What was it? What has it been like revisiting these moments?
Well, sometimes it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even realize the harm until somebody reflects it back to me. Like after somebody's read a chapter or whatever, they'll be like, that's terrible. I'm like, I know, that's
right?
terrible because of this, right? Like, I think it's something else that's terrible. And they'll be like, no, it's terrible because of this.
Oh, no.
And then I'm like, ooh, I don't want to unpack that right now.
Right.
Thanks. You know?
Yeah.
And it isn't just a book about grievances, right? But it is about, retelling these stories and from this bird's eye view, whether it is knowing what I know now versus what I knew then. And that feels powerful, but to be able to go,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't my imagination. And that was true harm. And that's what that harm did and how long it took me to undo it and all of that. But going back, but I've always found kind of difficult things hilarious, and that's perspective. So I tell even telling the story about the Wiz, I mean, that's a hilarious story.
Oh, especially Melissa, who's like, she's the blonde girl.
Yes, she's the blonde.
she's the blonde girl.
She's the blonde girl,
and she's going to think of
singing home from the Wiz. That's funny.
That is, yes.
So
I would have loved to see your Eveline, because don't nobody bring
fantastic.
Me no bad news.
Oh no, and my costume and my eyebrows, I arched my eyebrows.
I know you arched the eyebrows.
Right.
Metallic.
The streak of
I told you, I read this book.
I know, it makes me so happy.
I know.
It makes me so happy.
One of the things that we are set to take a break soonish, but I kind of just want to set up. Again, I used to be a high school theater teacher, so of course this book has been resonating. The earlier chapters have really been resonating with me.
Yeah.
And just my response, because I taught at a wealthy, independent school in a suburb of Memphis, Tennessee. And while I was, during my time there, one of the reasons why I took the job is they had 3 different campuses, and one was in Memphis proper that was all black. And my second year there was the year that the Memphis campus and the Germantown campus were going to merge and come in to 6th grade together.
Wow.
Making it the most integrated private school in Memphis.
Wow.
And there were shenanigans.
I would imagine
there were
so.
shenanigans.
Chicanery.
There was chicanery and shenanigans that was going on from so many people. But there have been things that have really, really hit me in a strong, strong way of like, okay, but we can get into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get into that. We do need to take a break. But hey, in the meantime, why don't you just give us a call? 773-763-9278. And we'll see you on the other side of this break. You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez right here on WCPT, Heartland Signal.
Explore the connection between type 2 diabetes and chronic kidney disease at a free lunch and learn hosted by Flourish Research, MedEvidence, and Weiss Memorial Hospital. Join Drs. Manish Jain and Khalil Saeed for a presentation on how patients can improve outcomes and how research is shaping tomorrow's treatments. This free event takes place Wednesday, July 2nd at Weiss Memorial Hospital, 4646 North Marine Drive in Chicago. Lunch will be provided, but space is limited. RSVP today at 773-275-3500, extension 113.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Union Strong Chicago continues to lead the way with progressive values and in preserving democracy. Your support of the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC efforts in Wisconsin and beyond strengthens the fight against MAGA Republicans. You can now purchase progressive beers like Labor Lager, Love Wins Fruited Sour, and the Resistance IPA in Chicago at Rogers Park Provisions, Diversey Beer, Wine, and Spirits in Lakeview, Park West Liquor, Wine, and Beer in Lincoln Park, Logan Square Liquors, and Tip Top Food and Liquors in Westtown. Visit MinocquaBrewingCompany.com for all their Chicagoland locations. As always, no matter how bad our sports teams are, please drink responsibly.
From city streets to political beats, you're driving it home with Patti Vasquez. Your progressive talk fuels the ride.
Hey, welcome back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I am not Patti Vasquez. I am Scott Duff. And I am in studio with author Tania Richard. She has a new memoir, and I always screw up the title.
You're doing good.
I know, because I'm forcing myself to make sure I read it. Because every time I don't know why. It's a black girl from a white suburb finding my light, using my voice. It details exactly what you were saying. It is a memoir of your experience being basically the only black student in your school.
Coming from that and how it informed it. It used to be called Black Girl in a White Suburb. And then when I finished it, I was like, oh, this isn't just about my experience.
No, because you were the entire time there are reflections of like, oh, I see this, what, like you were saying, this was harm.
Yeah.
This is something else. I want to focus on the teachers, because you have in this memoir, Black Girl from a White Suburb, Finding My Light, Using My Voice, available to pre-order now.
Yes, pre-order, Barnes & Nobles, Amazon. You can go to my website and find places to pre-order.
Yeah, you can start ordering it. And I highly recommend that you do.
Thank you.
Because it's going to be coming out on September 2nd.
That's right.
The day after your birthday. I'm just realizing that. Oh my gosh, what a birthday present. All right, sorry. But you are very honest about your experiences with teachers.
Yes.
And like I said, as a former high school teacher myself, it really resonated with me.
Yeah.
Talk to me. I know we just glibly were like, should I have told people? But but like, not like, no, let them suffer. But like, was there any hesitation going to do it that way?
Well, I feel like almost I didn't set out to, expose anyone.
Right. Oh, yeah. This isn't a big tell-all or.
But I realized as I needed to recount the stories, and some of the times where I felt the most othered was through my experience and interactions with teachers. And you may not have gotten there yet, but there's a sequence where I talk about yet another teacher who caused harm. And I finally...
There's been many. There's the history teacher. That guy's scared.
Oh, no, that wasn't scary. That was no joke. So a lot of the stuff that I experienced with teachers were the microaggressions, the biases. The history teacher was the first time I was like, oh, he's a full-on racist. Right?
Yeah.
But there are a few more, and what I had a moment of is like, I think I say something to the effect of like, I realize it sounds like I'm like, just complaining about a bunch of my teachers, but I'm like, you know what? They caused me harm, and now I get to talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much that. I mean, I had to put to rest this idea that I was doing something wrong by speaking my truth. And if they want to talk about it from their perspective, then they can write a memoir.
They can write their book. They can write their own book.
So once
racist teacher in a white suburb.
After these stories that I was collecting, it wasn't until I was mostly through them that I was like, wow, my teachers were my first bullies. People would think maybe a story called Black Girl from a White Suburb might be about kids who bullied me. It really wasn't that.
It's the adults.
It was the adults.
Yeah, and I think that is really important to remind ourselves, remind folks, because especially those folks who are educators out there. Of course, I'm not saying that all teachers are bad teachers, and not all teachers have biases and all this. Of course not. But you do have to recognize when bad behavior happens. And you also have to recognize when biases are happening. If you observe them, this is what I was talking about in terms of white people need to step up and do the work. You need, 9/11, if you see something, say something. That is not just for terrorism.
Amen.
It's for all the isms.
Right.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
But you have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, when you really remember that, like, teachers are human and they have their own biases, they have their own Achilles heels, they have their own insecurities and sensitivities, and then they're dealing with these young people who may be sort of in their minds the manifestation of something that, like, triggers them, and then they're reactive, and even if none of that is happening, the amount of power you have as an educator in front of a classroom of students, and the inherent biases when it comes to students who are Black and brown. And that again, somebody who is told that is like, what are you talking about? I'm not racist. I treat everybody the same. It's not true.
Right.
As a child, I was, there's the adultification of black girls. I was adultified. I was spoken to and treated as if I was, another adult who had to answer to certain things that other kids would not have to answer to. And so it's understanding that power. And I think more and more educators, it is my hope that they are.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I don't
of
want
course,
this to make
can
that
work in the reverse.
I know we can work in the reverse. Yeah,
be beautifully influential and impactful and all of that. But for those moments when the harm is caused, not one of the teachers I talk about would think that they actually had done anything
right.
Consciously or intentionally.
Yeah,
So it takes a certain amount of training, and which is why it is so sad. The schools who were trying to integrate professional development around inclusion and belonging, now the funding is getting cut. Yeah. And how often it's met with resistance, and now it's not even available at all.
Well, and also not even just the training and the like in-service sort of aspect, but just even like whole units of history.
Oh, forget it. Yeah.
I look back on my childhood experience. I remember in 5th grade we were learning about the Civil War, and we had to watch Gone with the Wind.
Oh, good. Yeah. That's a good one. Portrayal.
That's a totally accurate, and because it was on network television, and so we had to watch it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was kind of our.
Yeah, the misinformation, the brevity of dealing with the history of slavery, all of those things, there's a great disservice. And we're not, to not negate like the ignorance and erasure of other marginalized groups within American history. And systematically that stuff they're trying to erase it. Mm-hmm. Which is why, guess what? We can educate ourselves. Like, that's the one thing they can't do. Of course, they're trying to take stuff out of libraries, too. But there is a way to educate yourself.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And the thing, now, there's also, with this book, there is a performance component.
Yes, there is.
I saw, was it February? It was cold out. It was cold and it was very sunny though, but it was cold and it was sunny inside. I got to see a workshop production.
Yes. So there's
presentation of.
So at a certain point in this journey of writing this memoir, I just felt suddenly compelled. I was like, I want to be in conversation with this. The isolation of writing can sometimes just be maddening. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, so I decided to do a solo show where you're by yourself.
Right. But the whole solo show is you were literally talking to people and you ask questions of the audience.
Exactly. And it's interactive. And then you get to collaborate with a director. I got to work with the wonderful Lillian Brown. Mm-hmm. And so over at American Blues Theater, thank you, American Blues. And so the solo show now is its own entity, and we'll be having future performances. Mm-hmm. And it's a great way to sell the book, too, because it gives you a little preview. And that has been a wonderful, and did exactly what I needed to do, which was fill in gaps as a performer that I wasn't understanding needed to be a part of the book. So it's this great conversation I was able to have.
And what's so funny is because I saw the performance before I read the book, and I'm seeing what wasn't in the performance and going like, oh my God, like what? Like it really is wonderful. And not to say, I don't want this to all be like gloom and doom too, because we're talking about this.
And it's funny.
It's super funny. It's funny and delightful. But then as as you grow up and you leave that white suburb and you are now like, you talk about your time on Broadway with the Song of Jacob Zulu and what an incredibly empowering moment that is. Right. And then to go see you at the Goodman, in the African Mean Girls play, with a cast of all Black women. And it wasn't the entire team?
The entire team, except for like the stage management team, but the dramaturg, the designers, it was amazing.
The director.
That's Lil and the Goodman supporting Lil in terms of doing that. But those opportunities where like the first time I was in a group of people where I was with an all Black cast was also the first time I was around Black people in the majority, and it really opened my eyes and was a beautiful beginning of the journey.
It was just like as you're continuing on with your performance life and being in the audience, I can tell you firsthand that joy resonated throughout that entire room.
Thank you.
It really was. I'm like, and I also took a moment to be like, and how sad is it that it's what year that this is happening?
I know.
You know,
Yeah.
so again, we've got work to do.
Yes.
And we know that.
Yeah.
We have to have uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we can be completely and thoroughly delighted by pre-ordering your copy of Black Girl from a White Suburb, Finding My Light, Using My Voice by Tania Richard. Yes. Tania, where can folks find, like, what you're up to?
Yeah. So I'm at Tanya's Take on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
My website, Tania Richard, www.com. Has all the different tabs, kind of letting folks know what I'm doing. In particular, there's a Black Girl from a White Suburb tab that will lead you to where you can pre-order all the different retailers. And I got some shows coming up and the launch party. So follow me on Instagram and you'll get kept up on what's happening.
I love being kept up on what's happening with you. Tania Richard, I love you more than my panties.
I love you.
You are just a guiding star, and congratulations.
Thank you, Scott.
We do have to take a quick break for some news and stuff and junk. And when we come back, it is the second hour of Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez right here on WCPT Heartland Signal.
OMG, it's the work week and back to the daily grind. Alarms, emails, kids, meetings, chores, and so on. It's exhausting. We've all experienced the stress of the daily grind, but at Total Dentistry, the daily grind is quite different. This is Dr. Anna Pellick, and grinding refers to your biting force, the stress you place on your teeth, bone, and gums that actually causes destruction. Grinding can cause increased decay by wearing away your protective outer enamel. Grinding can cause gum recession, bone loss, and jaw problems. So what can Total Dentistry do for your daily grind? There are solutions such as bite appliances. We can restore your lost tooth structure with bonding or replace gum tissue with grafts. But early diagnosis and prevention is always best. So escape your daily grind and visit Total Dentistry. Call us at 847-358-2477 or visit us at totaldentistry.org. Total Dentistry, a general dental practice like no other, now in Streamwood and Palatine.
Join the free smoothie party at Tropical Smoothie Cafe on Saturday, June 21st for National Smoothie Day. Tropic Rewards members get a free smoothie with bowl or food purchase. Terms and conditions apply.
AP News, I'm Ben Thomas. A diplomatic effort to try to end the Israel-Iran war in Geneva today. At Donahue on how it went.
Iran's top diplomat met with European diplomats about the war with Israel. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi emphasized there's no interest in negotiating with the U.S. right now.
Iran is ready to consider diplomacy once again, and once aggression is stopped and the aggressor is held accountable for the crimes committed.
President Trump says the talks in Geneva didn't help.
Iran doesn't want to speak to Europe. They want to speak to us. Europe is not going to be able to help in this.
Speaking to reporters in New Jersey, the president was told the intelligence community has said there's no evidence Iran is building a nuclear weapon.
My intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
Your director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
And the president does not think Israel will stop airstrikes while the talks continue.
If somebody's winning, it's a little bit harder to do than if somebody's losing.
Ed Donahue, Washington.
Authorities in southern Mexico are still assessing damage and watching rising rivers as the remnants of Hurricane Eric doused the region. Mexico's president says a 1-year-old boy drowned in a swollen river as torrential rains swept over steep coastal mountains, triggering landslides and flooding. In Tennessee, a similar combination forced the closure of Interstate 40 in the Smoky Mountains, and Jennifer King reports falling rocks proved deadly for hikers in Canada's Banff National Park.
One of the 2 people killed was identified by the University of Alberta as 70-year-old Jutta Hinrich, a retired educator from Calgary. Rescuers rushed to the park Thursday afternoon after receiving reports of a rock slide on the Bow Glacier Falls hiking trail, which runs 6 miles along the edges of Bow Lake north of Lake Louise. Video from the scene shows a wall of gray rock sliding down, throwing up clouds of dust near the waterfall as visitors scramble away. I'm Jennifer King.
This is AP News. Twins, a bunch of them, graduating from a New York high school.
The John F. Kennedy High School on Long Island has a slew of twins in their 2025 graduating class. Principal Heather Dvorak.
We have 445 graduates, and within that group is 15 sets of twins.
Why so many?
Got to be something in the water.
Many of the students have known each other since kindergarten. Graduating twin Sydney Monka.
We get together and it's like,
Amanda Brake says they also talk about their twin problems.
Sharing clothes is the big one. She steals all my clothes all the time.
To Ariana Camareri, the moment is bittersweet.
We are always by each other's sides. Like, we know that each twin had each other's back.
A sentiment echoed by Emma Haney.
This is the last time we'll be walking across like the same stage together, like being in the same place at the same time.
As for different colleges, Allison Perrin.
I'm excited to be on my own.
I'm Lisa Dwyer.
And I'm Ben Thomas, AP News. Thanks for listening.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. An extreme heat warning in effect for the weekend. Tonight, a few isolated showers. Most of the area stays dry. Low temperature of 73 with breezy south winds. Saturday, sunny with a high of 94. The heat index as high as 102. Sunday, sunshine with a high of 95 degrees. Southwest winds up to 35 miles an hour. Monday, sunny with a high temperature of 96 degrees. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 84.
WCPT replay.
We don't want to litigate the election, but there were promises from the Democrats when it came to housing, when it came to opportunity. But I guess the part that lacks is that we didn't point to whose fault it was that you don't have those things. And we need to say it. It is the conservatives. And they have been working towards this since Reagan, since Nixon. That's why they have bought all the media. They have been pounding these messages of it's women's fault because they want to go to work. They want to have autonomy over their bodies. It's the people of color who are getting jobs that they don't deserve because certainly unqualified white people deserve to be at higher levels of service, whether it's in the military or in our government or on a plane or in a corporation. It's their fault. And it's not the fault of the billionaires and the uber wealthy whose wealth has grown exponentially.
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
This is a WCPT moment in labor. In the summer of 1909 in McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania, the workers of the Pressed Steel Car Company went on strike due to missing wages. 5,000 workers, mostly immigrants from Eastern European countries, walked out. They protested a corrupt payment system called pooling. The workers also claimed their wives and daughters were sexually assaulted in order to repay debts accumulated for food and housing. On average, one worker would die every day from the poor safety conditions. The workers received solidarity from the International Workers of the World, Standard Steel Car Company of Butler, and the railway trainmen and streetcar motormen who refused to haul scab workers into the city. The strike culminated in a bloody confrontation resulting in the deaths of at least 12 workers and one deputy sheriff, with many more workers injured. This led to a settlement which gave workers increased wages at a posted pay rate and ended the abuses of the company's housing practices. This has been a WCPT moment in labor. We're working for your rights.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez. From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing asses says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
And welcome to the second hour of Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I am not Patti Vasquez. I am Scott Duff. I'm the host of About Chicago. I am filling in today because Patti has just, she needed a day off. Yeah. She's running around. Lady B, of course, knows she's a busy gal. She is a busy gal, so we're happy. And also, we're very happy because it's now 6 o'clock. That means we'll get to welcome, hey, Minnesota, on KTNF, AM 950 and 1150 KKNW in Seattle. And, of course, right here on WCPT 820 on Heartland Signal. So happy that you are all joining us today. We've got a great second hour lined up for you. And, you know, speaking of people who are busy who are just running around and probably needs to sit down a little bit. Kevin Morrison, he is the county board commissioner for the 15th district. He has announced his candidacy for Congress, and luckily for us, he is on the phone right now. Commissioner Morrison, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so very much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. Well, hey, it was great to chat with you ever so briefly at the Buffalo Grove Pride Parade. It was wonderful to have you. We just saw you walking by. We grabbed you and you came on and chat with us. What were your thoughts on that day of the Buffalo Grove Pride Parade?
I mean, it was an amazing event. It was a great way to kick off Pride Month, and I believe it was the first of two parades that I walked in that day for the first time ever as a congressional candidate. And so it has been a mixture of feeling incredibly excited, humbled, and terrified as I take on this new journey. But seeing all that pride in Buffalo Grove, in the suburbs that used to be a lot different than they are right now, and it's just, I have nothing but gratitude that these suburbs are a far more welcoming place for the entire LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah, it was a fantastic day. I was completely overwhelmed. There were 103 organizations that took part in the Buffalo Grove Pride Parade, and to put that into context, at the Chicago Pride Parade, there are 150. Which is pretty swell. So it was a wonderful day, and it was made even more wonderful by you. I know you were so busy for you taking time out just to sit down and chat with us for a few minutes. So thank you for that, and thank you for taking time out today for a little bit longer conversation. I do want to start with, again, a very basic question. Why run for Congress?
Well, I am a hopeless optimist. I am someone who has been able to create alliances across party lines with the most unlikely of allies, and we need people who are ready to get to work in Congress, who are, on day one, are going to be people-focused. And anyone who gets the chance to meet me knows that I lead with my heart, and that I'm in this for the right reasons, that I truly care about finding solutions that help everyday people do better. And right now, we've got a lot at stake when it comes to the status of our republic. And I want to fight to make sure that our constitutional protections are withhold, that our republic stands firm, and that we finally get people into Congress who lead with empathy, who care about everyday people, and who are going to be focused on pushing forward policies that help individuals access health care, high-quality public education, affordable housing, and especially, one thing I'm proud of is I created Cook County's brand new Department of Mental and Behavioral Health. That is a program that deserves to be national. It shouldn't be a first-of-its-kind program right here in Cook County.
Yeah,
it should be coverage for everyone.
That really surprised me, the fact that it's like, wait a second, didn't we already have a Department of Mental and Behavioral Health? Like, that just seems like of course we need this. Can you tell us, our listeners, a little bit more about what it took about creating the Cook County Department of Mental and Behavioral Health?
Well, so we were so lucky to receive the federal funding that we received in the wake of COVID that helped us finally be able to bring this department to fruition. Right now, we are awaiting a heat map of what holes exist in the mental and behavioral health space county-wide. As soon as we have that data, we're going to begin to leverage county resources to fill every single one of those gaps. I don't think a single American should have to wait 6 months for an appointment. That is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And so once we get this department fully running, when we fill every single one of those gaps, we'll be the first county in the nation to do so.
It is just incredible. So thank you for that. As Cook County Commissioner, you have focused on healthcare access, mental health services, as we just said, as well as LGBTQ plus rights. How are you hoping to build and expand upon these and other issues in Congress?
Yeah. So, for example, we already had sexual orientation as a protected class here in Cook County.
Mm-hmm.
I led the effort to include 2 new protected classes, that being gender identity and reproductive freedoms. And those are now protected from discrimination in housing and employment for all 5.2 million Cook County residents. It got unanimous support, including our sole Republican, who voted for the first time ever in support of reproductive health care. And that's because of the relationship I was able to build with him. And so this is the strategy I want to bring now into this new role. If I am honored by the voters here in Cook, DuPage, and Kane County, if they send me to Congress, I'm going to be working with everyone to create policies like this to protect American residents to what should be basic civil liberties, to be able to live authentically as yourself and to have the freedom to do what makes you happy as long as you're not harming anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Well, then that ability to reach across the aisle is truly a skill that is sorely lacking right now in our current Congress. So hopefully, you are able to use that as your superpower. My previous guest, Tania Richard, her superpower was performance, but hopefully it is you being able to reach across the aisles and to work with other folks. As your role, you really have quite an impressive list of accomplishments. As we said, creating the Cook County Department of Mental and Behavioral Health. There's also the Cook County Small Business Source, which is a nationally recognized one-stop shop for small business resources. You are a lead sponsor in creating and annually renewing $100 million disaster relief fund. And being a lead sponsor of inclusion and gender identity and reproductive health as protective classes under Cook County's human rights ordinances. What else is on? I mean, is that it? It's like that's all.
I don't want to bore your listeners. It is definitely not all.
I know. That's what I mean. I was just joking.
The youngest county commissioner.
I know. It's amazing that you've accomplished so much at such a young age. What drives you?
What drives me?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to the story. And Joan Esposito has had me on many times. She's a fan of my family's restaurant. My family owns Dino's Pizza on the northwest side of Chicago. My first memories as a little kid were sitting up at one of the front booths, and every single time a customer would come in and ask for the owner, my mom would get the same response. Excuse me, I asked to speak to the owner. Because they could not believe that a strong, intelligent, hardworking woman could own a successful restaurant. Mm-hmm. And as a little kid, my mom struggled at educating a 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old kid on what sexism and misogyny were. But I think seeing my ma have that experience opened my eyes at a really young age to all the other inequities that existed around this country, be it racial discrimination, be it you name it. And I started at the age of 10 telling my mom that I feel like my goal in my life is I need to help fix this world. I need to make things better for everyone. And she would tell me, Kevin, that's a real hard task.
Listen to Mom.
So maybe you want to be a doctor.
Yeah, maybe.
But I've never been deterred. The only thing that makes me happy is helping other people, even if it means taking away from my free time and my ability to enjoy this life. What I enjoy most is helping others, and that's why I've been in this path. That's why I ended up taking the leadership of running for commissioner in the first place in 2018, and I'm not stopping until I get put in the grave. That's my only mission in life, is how do I help other people do better?
If only more politicians had a servant's heart like you. I think that it is vital to be able to be in sort of community service. And of course, leave it to mom. Moms are always good about, creating, providing an example and inspiration. And it's clear that, watching her, which has to be an incredible work ethic for having a business and continuing it, and the business is still there, is still going strong, and to instill that sort of work ethic and ethos into you. It's so frustrating. It's so refreshing to actually hear somebody who is in politics, who really leads with a servant's heart. So thank you for that.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I thank you. My ma is my mentor, my biggest inspiration, and my biggest supporter, and I remind her all the time how grateful I am for how she parented me and the values she instilled in me.
Yeah. Well, clearly it worked, because not only are you the youngest Cook County Commissioner, but you also just graduated law school last year. And then like, by the way, I'm going to go to law school as well. I'm like, all right, hats off to you, good sir. Where exactly is the district that you were going to when you're running for Congress? It's more kind of like there's a little bit of a Chicago with O'Hare, around the O'Hare area, but where is that? It's the 8th district, is that correct?
It is the 8th congressional district. 36% of my commissioner district is within the 8th. So my commissioner district goes Des Plaines to Elgin and all the Barringtons. The congressional district runs a little bit of Chicago and Norridge up through Rosemont and Des Plaines. There's that arm. Then it shoots all the way out to Elgin, south to St. Charles, north to Carpentersville. There's an arm right above where I live that shoots up to Palatine, and then there's a good chunk of a region of DuPage that goes down to Carroll Stream.
Oh, my gosh. Well, hey, Kevin Morrison, we've got to take a break. Can you stick around? Because I would love to dive in a little bit more about that is a very diverse district and see if you can use your superpower of reaching across the aisles to make some change and really help your constituents. So we're going to take a really quick break. And when we come back, we are going to be continuing our conversation with Cook County Commissioner Kevin Morrison, who is running for Congress. So stick around. You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez, right here on WCPT Heartland Signal.
A better life with Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
Most people, understandably, think about exercise in relation to their physical health. But I want you to start thinking about exercise as being good for your brain as well. New research out of China shows that being more physically active could help lower your risk of anxiety, depression, even dementia. The study's author told us the protection of your brain applies no matter how intense your exercise is, highlighting the importance of regular movement in promoting mental health. Now, for those of you who have a daily exercise routine, you probably know how good you feel when those endorphins get pumping. For those who aren't quite there yet, wearables can really help. I'm living proof of this. I set goals on my watch to keep me honest, and my secret, I try and knock out the exercise first thing in the morning before anything else gets in the way. I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta, helping you live a better life.
Whoa. More fiber?
What?
Down here, buddy. It's me, your spoon. Constipation with belly pain still coming back?
Yeah.
Talk to your doctor. It could be irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C, but Linzess could help you get ahead of it.
Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Talk to your doctor and say yes to Linzess. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
No detours, no distractions. Just bold ideas and real talk. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Welcome back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I'm Scott Duff, filling in for Patti Vasquez, and we are having a conversation with Kevin Morrison, County Board Commissioner for the 15th District. He has just announced his candidacy for Congress for the 8th District. And before we took a break, we were talking about the makeup of that district. How would you describe the constituents of the 8th District in Illinois?
Well, I would say it's very diverse.
Yeah.
You know, in the Schaumburg area, we have a quite large South Asian population. We've got a substantial Latino population, which is good. Porque estuve español por 7 años. Yo hablo bien en español. But it is a very diverse community, but it's where I grew up. I was born in Chicago, but at 10 years old, moved to Elk Grove Village. So the communities that I'm running in are where I've spent my entire life.
So these are your people, and also I do have to give you a big shout out, Lady B. As soon as you started speaking Spanish, Lady B turned around and was like, "All right." They were like, there were some props there for the Espanol. So I love that. So you, it is Pride Month, and you are the first openly gay person elected to the Cook County Board. Growing up gay, how did that shape you?
I've always, I've run as openly LGBT. I actually identify as pansexual.
So sorry, LGBT. My apologies.
You know, it's okay, but being part of the queer community was very difficult in the Northwest suburbs. You know, I was bullied from 4th grade to sophomore year. I would have homophobic slurs thrown at me in the hallways, and my teachers would look the other way. And, you know, things really did not start changing until we got marriage equity in Illinois in 2014. I remember it was 2014. It was right before we got marriage equity. It was my sophomore year of college. We were at Denny's in Schaumburg, and my partner had just his arm around me, and every single table stared at us. Okay. So growing up, even for the bulk of my college days, I never thought I could be a viable candidate in the Northwest suburbs. But that all started breaking down when we got marriage rights. And you could feel it. The Northwest suburbs, almost every one of my villages has a Pride event now. You know, I've been to ones in, like you said, Buffalo Grove, where I saw you. Des Plaines has one. Elk Grove has one. Schaumburg has one. Elgin has one. And it has become such a more welcoming place. And Des Plaines will fly the Pride flag all month long. And so we have seen a complete shift. It is what gave me the faith that I could potentially run my race in 2018. And it is remarkable that right now, as I'm talking to you, I am a viable candidate for this race in the 8th Congressional District.
Yeah, it is remarkable. And I'm sorry, I am actually taken aback a little bit to really think that in such a recent history, you were talking about when marriage equity was passed. You were in Schaumburg. I remember I was actually in New Holland, Michigan, getting ready to do a big Pride comedy show with Poppy Champlin. And I remember we were also sitting in a diner when the news came out, and we were just sobbing with tears of joy. And people were just kind of looking at us, and it felt a little awkward. And I think people who live in Chicago proper and might be in their own little gay bubbles or queer bubbles, whatever, you know, they're in their bubbles, might not really appreciate exactly how challenging it can, or it has been, even as recent as, 10 years ago.
Yes. No, 100%. And it's been a game changer for our community. Mm-hmm. But we are seeing attacks to try to claw back at the rights we currently have. And that is terrifying. But I bawled when I got the news that marriage equity had passed. Mm-hmm. And remember, it was the year before in 2013 where we saw the Supreme Court rule against the law in California that really laid the groundwork to make Obergefell a possibility. And I knew during that decision, it wasn't if, but when. And so, it is allowed. We've seen an explosion of queer electeds be elected to any number of offices all across this country. And we lead. We know what it's like to be discriminated against. And so we stand up for everyone. And that is something that I've led with as a county commissioner and hope to do so as a congressman.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you work with county commissioner, as you said, you've been very, very strident for LGBTQ rights. And there is something about the resilience that is learned from being a part of our community that can only benefit your work as the county commissioner, and eventually, fingers crossed, as a member of Congress that's coming up. As you are getting ready to really actively start the campaign, I'm sure you've already started it. But what are some of the things that you are hearing from your constituents that they are concerned about that you hope to address?
Well, first and foremost, people are scared about their due process rights. I've had to recommend that the pizza man at my family's restaurant, who is a U.S. citizen, keep his passport on him at all times, because what is happening right now is unacceptable. We just had a raid in Elk Grove Village of a business where as many as 20 people who all have work permits, so that means they all have legal status, were detained. I just got a call from one of the general managers from that location. He's found out that one of his former employees is at an ICE detention facility in Missouri as of today. And people are struggling when it comes to costs going up, when it comes to grocery bills, when it comes to what kind of livelihood are their children going to have when people of my generation, millennials and below, feel like the American dream is gone forever. And, people want hope. They do not see enough leadership in the halls of Washington right now that are leading with empathy. And I hope to inspire folks to once again have faith in their elected officials.
From your mouth, that's what I have to say. Actually, Lady B, there is somebody who already is in Congress right now. It is Sarah McBride. She is the first openly trans individual, and she had something similar to what you were saying, a message of hope. And I would like to play that for you, if you would allow me.
Yes, of course.
And we're just queuing it up right now. This is the fun part of live radio.
It's like we can't see we're going through a rough patch right now. We've been through rough patches before. I think what's challenging in this moment is that it feels like we can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But you cannot tell me that the reasons for hopelessness now for our country are greater than the reasons for hopelessness for an enslaved person in the 1850s who had no reason to believe that an Emancipation Proclamation was on the horizon. You cannot tell me the reasons for hopelessness now are greater than the reasons for hopelessness for an unemployed worker during the early days of the Great Depression. And you certainly cannot tell me that the reasons for hopelessness now are greater than the reasons for hopelessness for a closeted gay or closeted trans person in the 1950s who never knew of an America where they could live openly and authentically as themselves without violating the law. They had every reason to give up, but they didn't. They persevered, they summoned their hope, they changed the world, and they said to the United States of America.
Hey, see, I'm telling you, that is what it sounds like you've got a great colleague there. And hopefully when you get to Congress, you can connect with Representative McBride there.
I've already sat down with her, and I saw that yesterday morning and texted her my thanks and praise for that message.
Oh, my gosh. Well, Kevin Morrison, best of luck with you as you run for Congress for the 8th District of Illinois. Kevin Morrison, thank you as Cook County Commissioner. Thank you so much for taking time out today. Happy Pride Month, and best of luck.
Happy Pride, everyone, and thank you. And please visit my website, KevinMorrisonForCongress.com. I could use your support as we get to the end of the month. Thank you.
There we go. KevinMorrisonForCongress.com. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, there is more Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez right here on WCPT Heartland Signal.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. An extreme heat warning in effect for the weekend. Tonight, a few isolated showers. Most of the area stays dry. Low temperature of 73 with breezy south winds. Saturday, sunny with a high of 94. The heat index as high as 102. Sunday, sunshine with a high of 95 degrees. Southwest winds up to 35 miles an hour. Monday, sunny with a high temperature of 96 degrees. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 84.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
With MedGuard Alert, you're never alone. You can connect with medical professionals anywhere, anytime. And now MedGuard is introducing our exclusive new Care Watch. If you need help quickly, use it from anywhere to contact medical professionals. No cell phone required. The Care Watch is not only a life-saving medical alert device, it's a revolutionary health monitoring system that checks your blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen saturation, and much more. And here's the best part. If you have Medicaid, you may qualify to get your Care Watch for free. The Care Watch is only available through MedGuard Alert. Call us right now. We have monitoring programs starting as low as $1 a day. The call is free, activation is free, shipping is free, and no contract is required. Remember, with Medicaid, you may qualify to get your Care Watch for free. Call us to get your Care Watch right now.
800-741-5819. 800-741-5819. 800-741-5819. That's 800-741-5819.
1 in 4 Americans have a disability. I'm one of them. I'm also a working mom who cares deeply about making sure every child with a disability thrives by getting their access needs met. We've got a trusted ally by our side. Easter Seals provides children and families the foundation for lifelong success through early learning programs, skills training, and prep for college and career. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours. Join us at easterseals.com.
WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
If you're listening to this station right now, you've definitely heard my voice before. Hi, I'm Hawk.
And I'm Pete. And we're with Source Solar, your local source for solar. Source Solar is Chicagoland's premier solar installer, providing solutions for over 1,000 homeowners and business owners across Illinois and Iowa.
With over a decade of industry experience and deep roots here in Chicago, we have the expertise to help your transition to clean, renewable, resilient energy.
We can guarantee that we save you money day one without any out-of-pocket cost to you. This means you have an instant ROI, instant payback, and can save money to add to your bottom line day one.
At Source Solar, we source everything as local as possible, meaning we always carry the Made in USA sticker.
Find us online at www.source.solar. Stop in our office at 5710 North Northwest Highway or give us a call at 773-985-3992.
And don't forget to ask for Hawk
or Pete.
Welcome back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Welcome back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I am not Patti Vasquez. I am Scott Duff. I am the host of About Chicago, which airs Sundays here from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. I am filling in for her because Mama needs to sit down. And hopefully she's been sitting down for the last...
I was going to say, Patti, how you have changed.
Yes. It's been a hot second. And that sultry voice that you've heard right over there belongs to the co-founder and executive director of the Legacy Project, Victor Salvo.
Heidi ho.
Heidi ho. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Who are you calling a hoe?
Well, I've known you a long time.
This is true. It's so good to see you.
Slipped out.
Oh, it's fine. It's time the whole world knows.
Yeah.
There we are. Hey, so good to see you, my friend. It's been a hot minute.
It's been a while. Yeah.
It's been a while and everything. You doing well?
I'm doing well. I think the last time I was on here was with Richard to talk about our upcoming Samba Bamba.
Samba Bamba. Yeah. How was that?
It was fabulous.
Of course it was, because it was Samba Bamba.
We hadn't performed in like 7 years, and it was really one of our best shows, even though we're all basically on Social Security at this point.
Well, not anymore. Not anymore. Good luck with that.
I look forward to the second of every month just to see.
Well, Victor, as I said, is the executive director of the Legacy Project. Yes. It is a Chicago-based cultural and educational nonprofit dedicated to researching and promoting the contributions of the LGBTQ community. I'm a part of it, and I can never say it. LGBTQ community and our contributions to history,
world history and culture.
And for our listeners out there, explain the order. Like, how did this whole thing come about?
Well, we were really kind of inspired at the National March on Washington in 1987, and by a couple of things that all happened at the same time. It was the first time the Names Project AIDS Memorial quilt had ever been put on display. It was the first time there had been a queer demonstration at the Supreme Court when ACT UP, 600 people got arrested protesting the recent Hardwick decision at that time. And it was the first time the day that would come to be called National Coming Out Day was recognized. And so we were standing there with this kind of like, here we are, living history is unfolding around us, and now there is a plague that's going to kill every single person here, and we're expected to embrace a legacy, and none of us knows what it is. Who's going to remember who came before us when we're gone if we don't know ourselves? So that was really the impetus of creating an outdoor museum that would recognize the contributions to world history and culture that queer people had made. And that took 25 years to the day from the idea being hatched before the Legacy Walk was dedicated on October 11th, 2012, National Coming Out Day. And in 2013, we launched the education program to begin creating teaching tools for the people that we recognized on the walk. And in 2015, we created the Legacy Wall, which is our traveling installation, which is currently installed in City Hall in downtown Chicago, which is pretty fabulous. It's the first City Hall we've been to. It's our 55th installation. It's been on a national tour since 2017. So we just came off of a month or two at Center on Halstead, and now it's at City Hall. And we're planning to bring it back to the state capitol in October to celebrate its 10th anniversary, because it was created in 2015.
Oh my gosh, has it really been 10 years?
Yeah, really. And we worked with our partners at Equality Illinois and Public Health Institute of Metropolitan Chicago and Illinois Safe Schools Alliance to write and eventually pass the LGBTQ inclusive curriculum mandate for the state of Illinois, which now requires that LGBTQ historical narratives be taught as part of public school education for K through 12 students. And we write those tools for the state of Illinois. We have 287 lesson plans, which are structured and age appropriate. They're like multi-track lesson plans depending upon the age of the student. And they've been created specifically.
Wait, I want to stop right there because I just want to be like, so to people out there who might be like, K through K, that's so early. It's like, oh, so you're actually taking time to make it age appropriate curriculum. Yeah.
It's challenging, and there are some lives that just really can't be explained to someone who's that young. So not everyone has a K, because it's broken down to K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12. And we just sort of make the judgment call as we're working on that particular person's story. And some people have, tragic elements to their story, and those aren't really age appropriate. We don't talk about suicide until they're older and things like that.
But I think, the point that I really want to drive home, since we are driving it home with Patti Vasquez, is the fact that when we're talking about including LGBTQ narratives into history classes, into the curriculum, we are talking about people who have taken time, thought, and are creating a curriculum that is based on something that is appropriate for the age.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
It would be unethical to do it any other way, of course. And for the younger kids, mostly a lot of these stories really become about fairness, treating people politely. So you frame your entire approach to it, like the biography that's provided for each age group is different. right? And so honestly, from an adult perspective, and I'm always banging my cane on the floor, the young people don't necessarily learn that much about the history, but if somebody, especially because it's multicultural and international, it's helpful, and teachers really ultimately make the call, right?
Right.
And for a lot of these, for the teachers that we've talked to in terms of how it's used, sometimes, and they work with the parents as well, it's not like this thing that's necessarily forced on everyone. But they can. The tools are there to provide a story that acknowledges some form of gender diversity or differentness emotionally, if that is appropriate for that child to learn. I have most of the, honestly, that we deal with are late middle school and high school for the most part.
Yeah.
But we took great care to create those materials. And we actually have things like picture puzzles and that sort of thing that are just sort of geared for the youngest kids. And honestly, when we were really creating the curriculum originally, it never occurred to me to actually have that young of a track in it. But the way the Illinois law was written was to make it consistent with all the other mandates that had passed within the state of Illinois, which all required that it begin at kindergarten. So we actually had to add those tracks in, and we consulted with, everything's been with teachers and PhDs in education and all that. We don't just pull it out of our butts. It's all it's all real good stuff. Trust me. We've gotten nothing but accolades about the quality of the material, and everything that is created has been written to align to the Illinois school standards. So there's a search engine on the website where a teacher can put in, the class age group of the class, or what grade they're teaching, or the specific Illinois code that they're trying to teach to, and they can just it's like 7 or 8 filters, right? They pick on their search thing, and then they just hit enter, and then it spits back to them all the people that are within that subject matter. So whether or not you're talking, a particular ethnic group or a particular facet of history,
or they're an astronaut,
right? So it just kind of dials it in for them, and so we try to do as much work as possible for the teacher, and then provide a list of classroom exercises and things that are sort of modeled on standard things. For the most part, this isn't it's not really about sexuality or anything. This is just it's classroom stuff.
Right.
For the vast majority of these people, this is literally one sentence that's added into their biography. Right. The story isn't about their sexuality. It's just a way of acknowledging that a person who was not heterosexual, or cisgender or whatever, did something that mattered in this particular subject you're studying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Intrinsically giving people value who aren't cisgender or heterosexual.
Right. And it's done very matter-of-factly.
Right.
And it's not sad, and it's not, strident or anything like that. It's honestly, I'm not going to say that it's boring, but it is history.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it has dates and all the same kind of stuff that anything else has in it. And it's just nice to be able to acknowledge the contributions that people like us have been making for centuries after centuries. So.
Yeah, well, and we thank you for that. We should probably take thank you. We should probably take a quick break. And when we come back we're going to continue chatting with our good buddy, Victor Salvo, as we're getting ready to head on to Pride Week.
Oh my God.
And talking about the legacy of the legacy
Pride. I'm just
girl, you mean same. That's why I get to sit inside the Center on Halsted and talk about it and not be on the thing.
I'm probably going to be sitting next to you.
Oh my gosh, that is music to my ears. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, there is more Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez right here on WCPT Heartland Signal.
The Rick Smith Show.
These are the people that we've handed the keys to the kingdom. These are the people that we've said, go ahead, run the country. So are we surprised when we said that they're going to run it into the ground? Now, you could go, Rick, you've been saying this is all planned, and I think it is. I think the chaos is plotted. I think they know, as long as there's chaos, we can then do the real goal, which is breaking the federal government and stealing from we the taxpayers.
The Rick Smith Show, weeknights at 7 on WCPT 820.
Did you know? VA home loans are a key to home ownership for those who served.
I would tell anybody who is interested in getting a VA loan to just do it.
For me, the best thing about the VA loan was the simplicity of it. I was expecting, government paperwork. It was going to go on forever, and it just wasn't.
Since the down payment for a VA loan is minimal, we were able to purchase this home and then use the money that we were going to use as a down to actually fix up the home.
And the only way we could do that was because the nest egg that we had saved for the down payment, we didn't have to use because we went the VA route.
This is a wonderful benefit that veterans can take advantage of.
In the military, we make a lot of sacrifices. We're away from our family a lot. And with the VA loan, it's a way that it makes it easier for us to get a home.
To learn more about VA home loans, visit va.gov/home loans.
Those headaches and stomach aches your child gets may be migraine. 10% of children and 28% of adolescents have migraine disease. Migraine at School can help. Learn more at migraineatschool.org. As a parent, I know how migraine impacts my daughter's ability to learn. Every child deserves the chance to flourish in school. Visit migraineatschool.org. Sponsored by the Coalition for Headache and Migraine Patients.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Welcome back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I am not Patti Vasquez, but do not worry. Monday on Driving It Home, Patti will be back, and her guests will include Dr. Kristen Lyerly, OBGYN, comedian Tamale Sepp, which I know Lady B is very happy about, Second City Outlaws, and political and community activist Richard Streetman. Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Central on WCPT 820 AM, the Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and also in Minnesota on KTNF AM 950, and in Seattle 1150 KKNW. All over the place. My God, we're everywhere. There we are. That lovely sultry voice is none other than Victor Salvo.
I'm only sultry when I'm on your show.
I know. You're sultry all the time. Are you kidding me? You smolder. You smolder. Every time I see it, I'm like, what's happening? Oh, it's just Victor smoldering over in the corner with his little eyes. And your great hair. I am so jealous of your hair.
Well, there's something wrong with your hair.
Well, it's not your hair, though. Your hair, you have an exceptional hair.
I'm blessed that I had my father's hairline. He had a full head of hair until he passed away.
Yeah, no, it's just mine's slowly moving down my back is what's happening. There we are. Too much information. Get used to it, America and Seattle and Minnesota.
It reminds me of a line from I Love Lucy when Fred Merck said now that his hairline was receding. And Ethel said, let me see it. He looked at her and she said, turn around.
Oh, man. See, this is why we need to talk about queer history.
Yes, exactly.
Because now we're the only ones that get it.
Yeah, we are really. And I feel sorry for everybody else.
But, I think that's one of the wonderful things about the Legacy Project is the fact that it is bringing these important figures from history to the fore. And I'm also, I somehow I always forget that the birth of this began at the March on Washington in '87, and that to me right there, that is there a plaque for the AIDS epidemic?
There is not one for the AIDS epidemic at this time. I did work on the creation of the AIDS Garden. I was on that board.
Right. Yes.
And we have been Owen Keenan and I have been talking about wanting to do a walking memorial path with plaques because you really couldn't sum up AIDS in 300 words.
Right.
It's just not possible. But we've been thinking about doing something with maybe 12 to 18 plaques that would tell the story of AIDS sort of in chronological order, but from the perspective of each affected community. So there'd be, a Hispanic one, and the one from nurses, and one from doctors, and one from the African American community, and sort of woven in a chronological thing. And the idea was to bring it all the way up to the present time with the Getting to Zero campaign, and then leaving spaces for the future of AIDS.
I'm here for it.
It's a huge undertaking. It would cost a great deal of money to do, and Owen is always writing a new book.
I know he is always writing a new book.
He is always writing a new book, and I'm perpetually attached to the Legacy Project. Probably, I always say I'm going to die
in perpetuity.
I'm going to die mid-sentence during the tour.
No, but I applaud that idea, and I think that is an idea that needs to be, whether it's you or Owen or any other lovely human being that's listening out there. I think the story of the AIDS epidemic in the 80s is one that does not necessarily, that is known fully by younger generations.
Oh, not at all.
Not at all. And because I remember, 13 years ago, doing stand-up comedy, and so many young people making AIDS jokes. Still. And I was just like, how?
Well, it's, again, I always fall back on it. It makes me sound really egalitarian, but I can't blame people for not knowing what they were never taught.
All right.
And and even though making jokes about any kind of disease is just in bad taste, but also some people are just jerks, right? But I do know, like, a number of people on the Legacy Walk, the outdoor museum, have passed away from AIDS. Maybe 7 or 8 out of the 50 some plaques. And I remember the first time talking about someone who had passed away, and I don't know if it was Alvin Ailey or Keith Haring or whoever it was. And one of the teachers, because it was a classroom, leaned in and said, "Could you spend a few moments explaining to them what AIDS is?"
Wow.
And I looked at her, and she said, "They're only taught that it's a really bad STD.
And not what really happened."
They don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And I've been... I wrote a paper once, and I created a live presentation that I do that's called AIDS Changed Everything. That kind of links together in as broad a fashion as you can for if you have 50 minutes to listen to me and look at slides, trying to explain that AIDS, if you look at some things from the 20th century, you've got, the 2 world wars, you have the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War, shall we say, as well, the sexual revolution, quote unquote, air quotes, and AIDS were probably the critical turning points in the evolution of American society in the 20th century. And most people don't even realize that AIDS literally changed everything. Every aspect of how insurance is written, how medicine is fast-tracked. There isn't a single aspect of what we take for granted today that was not touched in some way by the way the AIDS epidemic was dealt with, both from correcting what the government did wrong, as well as implementing what groups like ACT UP advocated to do right. And just the fact that they build hospitals with private rooms now is because of AIDS, because people would not share a room with someone who had an infectious disease. And this became, again...
the bodies wouldn't even be allowed in the morgue.
Right.
There are people this is why it's important
funeral homes wouldn't even involve them.
This is why it's important to tell these stories, to tell history.
And I wanted to write. I have a 4-unit mapped out in my head of a high school class that actually breaks down. And if if we ever get the funding to actually do it, I'd like to put together something that really delves into AIDS. The problem with it, though, is that the government comes out really crappy in that story, and the church does too.
Right.
So there's not a whole lot of incentive
for funding
for it, because
well, especially in this administration.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we would fund it. We would end up funding it privately,
right?
More than likely. But the teachers that would be willing to teach it, because I mean, talk about when you think about the reaction against, critical race theory, or the desire to eliminate DEI, or any of the things that are sort of happening at that sort of macro level, and how it's terrorizing teachers into limiting what it is that they're willing to talk about. AIDS is like a nuclear warhead.
Oh, yeah.
Because no one comes out good in that except the queer community.
Right.
And its
Yeah.
allies.
Yeah. Wow. That's an interesting perspective. Yeah. And see, this is why I love talking to you.
Well, I love talking at you.
Girl. Well, hey, you can talk at me because you're all fancy now. June 16th is now, it's a pretty special day in Chicago, right?
Yeah, that was lovely. I was not aware. Well, I sort of was aware that there was some kind of proclamation or resolution or something going on. I didn't expect it to happen at that time during the press conference.
And what happened
there? Well, it was sort of like the official ribbon cutting, quote unquote, of the Legacy Wall being at City Hall, and I spoke, and Alderman Lamont Robinson, who was very critical in sort of putting the pieces together, as well as obviously Mayor Johnson and Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle, all spoke about it. And then the mayor spoke last, and then he took out the proclamation, making it Legacy Project Day in Chicago.
Amazing.
And that was pretty special. And then I was there 2 days later for the city council resolution, which was a more complex process because the city council has to vote on it, recommending or just acknowledging Pride Month.
Fantastic. Well, and well earned, well deserved.
Yeah.
And thank you for the tireless work that you do.
You have to go to City Hall and find out what
go
Pride
to City
is
Hall
really all about.
and go find out what Pride's all about, or you can go take a walk up and down Halstead and take a look at the Legacy Walk, and also make sure you join us on Sunday, June 29th. There's a special Out Chicago. We're going to be broadcasting live from the center on Halstead, and it sounds like you're going to be able to make it. Fingers crossed.
I'm hoping to.
Wonderful.
We just have to discuss the timing a little bit, but
gotcha.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch with that, but it's going to be great. It's also our 600th show about Chicago.
Wow.
I know. When you do a show once a week to do 600 of them, I'd say I'm patting myself on the back.
I knew there was an anniversary coming up.
And it falls right on Pride, which is just amazing. So make sure you check out that. And again, thank you so much. And of course, Patti is back on Monday. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend. Stay cool.
Well, June is Pride Month, and all of us who believe in freedom and equality are speaking out for LGBTQ plus rights. But did you know there's a way to raise your voice for equality every month? In fact, every day. It's your phone if you use Credo Mobile. Credo Mobile has donated over $15 million to nonprofits working for equal rights, groups like National LGBTQ Task Force, Transgender Law Center, and the ACLU. And they'll continue to do so because they don't abandon their values when the political wind shifts. They stand for LGBTQ plus people during Pride Month and every month. If you're ready to switch, it's so easy to do. Here's how you make a difference. Go to credomobile.com. WCPT listeners can get 25% off your service for 2 years if you use the code WCPT.